Hey, it's Rob, and I wanted to do a follow-up to last week's video where I visited the former location of the Record One recording studio. That's where Michael Jackson did the bulk of the Dangerous album. It is still a studio. I don't want to say it's former because it still exists. It's a privately owned studio now, and it's been around for decades. And that's where I worked as a studio runner. I was, the guy who picked up lunch, and I was the guy who answered the phones and said good morning to Michael every morning and made sure the refrigerator was stocked with food. Exciting stuff like that. Anyway, but I worked there from 90 to 91 when they were recording, like I said, the bulk of the Dangerous record. They moved to a different studio after that. But for a couple of years, or at least a year and a half, we were there every day working on some part of the Dangerous record. Songs like Black or White, songs like Give In To Me, Keep the Faith, Jam, all those, big songs from the record, or most of them were recorded originally at this Record One recording studio. Now, it's interesting, I've been going into the history a little bit, and I'll flash it right here real quick. Record One started out as a French restaurant named Robert's, which is my name in French, so how about that? Anyway, so after it was a restaurant, it was purchased by Val Garay, who was an engineer-producer. Val Garay recorded albums like The Motels, All for One, with the song Only the Lonely, Betty Davis Eyes, Kim Carnes, a lot of stuff in that era, the late 70s. And then it was purchased by Alan Sides, who ran Ocean Way Recording Studios. I worked at Ocean Way. I had just gotten a job there where they said, we've got a project for you. We need a clean-cut guy who's not going to threaten the client. They didn't want like a long-haired metal guy with tattoos or whatever. Anyway, that's how I ended up working, around Michael Jackson for 2 years at that studio. Anyway, we were out in LA last week. I didn't think it was going to happen. I even rented a hotel close to the Record One studio location just in case I could get in there. I tried to call, leave a message. I sent an email, didn't hear anything. Monday morning, the one day we're in LA, I get a text from the studio operations manager, nice guy. He said, come on down, I'll show you around. I said, I'll be right there. So my wife and I went. We got toured around. I, kind of was tentatively catching some video footage as I was walking around. I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I didn't want to scare the guy away. I certainly didn't say, hey, I'm going to put all this stuff up on YouTube. But that is, of course, what I did. And that video is getting a lot of views, so I'm happy for that. And it was great seeing the old studio. A lot of stuff has changed, of course, in 30 years, the equipment and things of that nature. Interestingly enough, after Dangerous was recorded, Michael Jackson planned on doing his next project, whatever that was, which I guess was History or whatever, Blood on the Dance Floor. I don't remember what came after, in what order. Anyway, 1994, we had the Northridge earthquake. So the studio had spent, I don't remember, $5 million refurbishing one of the two studios, Studio A, to bring it up to more modern standards, specifically in the hopes that Michael would record there. Michael had expressed interest, but, one of the studios, the equipment was not really up to date. It was still kind of 70s era stuff, still excellent, top of the line stuff in its day. Anyway, long story short, they had the Northridge earthquake, and January 17th, 94, Michael was freaked out. He said, I'm not recording in LA. They had already refurbished the studio, spent a lot of money, so, they continued to record artists there. Eventually it sold to a private party, and it's been running for 30 years. I really wanted to get in because I don't know how much longer it can keep running. These kind of studios, keeping these rooms running is very expensive. You just don't have the budgets and the clientele anymore to keep the money coming in. So we'll see, what's going to happen in the future. I, wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't around in a few years. I hope it is, but it's kind of the way these things are going. Anyway, it was great to see the studio. It was cool to see what had changed, and the fact that a lot of the stuff basically was the same. The big recording room, Studio B, was basically the same, at least orientation. Equipment had changed, but kind of the same setup. A few things I didn't get to point out in the video, which I regret. There's a door when you walk in that was the tape locker. That's where all Michael Jackson's master tapes were stored. Who knows what songs and music were in there. Anyway, that was stored there. Michael had a private room in the back. I didn't really get to see that. And I didn't walk all the way through to see the kitchen. Again, this used to be a French restaurant, so a lot of the layout, I think, came from the fact that it was previously a restaurant. So, just a few things I left out, and just wanted to explain a little further. Anyway, it was great to see the old studio. Spent a lot of time there. It was just a very unique experience. Just to sit, even though I wasn't, specifically in the room where the music was being recorded necessarily, just to be there and hear it coming through the walls, or they leave the door open and you hear these songs developing. I'd hear, Black or White when it was just the drum part, and they were trying out different snare drums for an entire day. If you haven't checked out that video, please do. It was very cool to see the place again. I really appreciate them letting me come through, even though they probably didn't know it was going to end up on YouTube or whatever, but hey, it's probably good press for them. Anyway, very cool just to go back in time and get to see a place that I probably would have never been able to see otherwise. So glad I made it happen.